part two.
All right, so yeah, we got a little cut off because the computer's ridiculous. But basically, we were talking about the American flag burnings and Americans trying to express their freedom by destroying the very thing that gives them freedom. Raylene, do you want to finish your last thought?
Yeah, what I was saying is, as we have tickets for, certain things that you shouldn't do, I feel like this should be one of them. And I know a lot of people probably won't agree with me, and there'll probably be some people who think it's stupid. And I know a lot of people, like, what Chris was saying, they're probably going to disagree with him. Like, with the symbolization of freedom, there's a lot of places you can have freedom, though. Yes, that is true. But America was that icon of freedom. And there's so many arguments, and so many ways this conversation can go, because I know America's screwed up now. Believe me, I know.
Still pretty good compared to most countries.
Yeah, like the ones under communism.
I don't
know if the
opposite. I think compared to some countries, we are both still good and both just, wow, we need to get in shape. So I do understand, but you also have to think back to the history of our flag, all the people who fought for our freedom and, gave up whatever they may have had for our freedom. And yes, we may not respect that, we may not, understand that as our generation is, and that's probably going to offend a lot of people, but let's be honest with ourselves. But you really have to think about those people and what they gave up and what they did for us. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, that doesn't affect me. But it really does, and I think a lot of people should think about that before burning the American flag, stomping on it, or even, there was also a story a few months ago where this guy could not hang an American flag because if somebody else was offended by it, because they were from a different country or something.
I'm actually going to ask a question related to that, yeah.
And so I honestly think that, that's another issue within itself too. Like, oh, well, they should, we should make them comfortable too. But then it's like, you're suppressing our freedom in our own country.
Yeah.
And I do understand, that we shouldn't suppress theirs either. But at the same time, they're kind of on our ground, and it's our flag, So, just something to think about.
Okay, so on that note, I have to say, I'm absolutely correct, absolutely on board with what you're saying, and answering the question of what would I do, Raylene knows that I would be very much involved and very much offended. A lot of people like to say, well, this flag represents the freedom that I have to destroy this flag. And I actually heard one friend trying to play devil's advocate, and that was his argument. We have the freedom to do whatever we want. You don't have to agree with it, you don't have to like it, but we can do it. And I say, well, yeah, you can do it, but by destroying the flag, aren't you also destroying your freedom to destroy the flag? By defacing or vandalizing the flag, aren't you saying my freedom isn't that important, I don't need it? Because that's what the American flag represents to me.
Yeah.
It's a huge, huge symbol. Mm-hmm. I'm going to ask another question about flags and whether or not we should be offended in a moment. But I want to remind everybody that my father himself fought for this flag.
How funny, I was just going to bring that up.
and this is his flag, okay? Whenever a veteran dies, they get a flag. So I went to his service, and they did the whole thing. This was draped over his casket to start with, and then they did the taps. They did the 20-gun salute or whatever it is. I forget what it's called because I'm very forgetful. And at the time, I was not completely recording every moment. And then they handed this to my mom, and we got a box, and we framed it. This is a reminder of two things. One, that my father was a patriot, and two, that he fought for our rights to be free to express our opinions. And I look at this flag, and I say, what if somebody came into my house, took this outside, and started stepping on it? Do you think I would just stand there? Do you think I would just let them walk over my father's flag?
No.
What if somebody took this and started burning it? I wonder how much they like to be lit on fire, because that's what would happen next. This may seem a little bit extreme, but it doesn't matter if it's your flag, or if this is my dad's flag. Well, not even put my father aside. As much as I love my father, it isn't about my father. It's about the fact that he represents the greater American dream, the greater American power of expression, the greater American right to serve. There's so many reasons that this is so much bigger than whether or not it's mine. Like, say somebody has a flag like this, and they get mad, and they're drunk one night, and they go out and try and burn it. I would do the same thing to them that I would do if they did it to my flag. And they would say, well, this is my flag, I can do what I want. I said, no, this is our country's flag.
Yeah.
You may have an American flag, but it is not your flag. It is our flag. This is something that represents everything that we are, everything that we claim is our freedom to choose to do whatever we want. You don't burn this. You don't step on it. That's my opinion. You know, this is not only a piece of my family's history now, but this is also representative of that flag that everybody's stepping on and burning. That's where I stand. If somebody tried to burn a flag or step on a flag in front of me, I'd be willing to give my life to defend that flag. Because I may not be able to get into the military because of all my conditions, but you can sure as hell bet that I'm going to fight for my country. And this is my country. This is representative. I don't care how screwed up our country is. I don't care how lost their country is. It is still a country that represents freedom and democracy. And even if the government takes that away, I'm still part of the original country. I don't care what it changes into. I represent what this stood for.
I think that's another topic that we should probably do about what America is changing into
And we will.
how many things have changed. Because I mean, I know this video alone is going to cause so much people bringing up,
I hope so.
Like the freedom to have an education. We all know the education system is jacked up.
And we're going to get there, actually. So I don't have to jump too far ahead.
I'm excited for all that stuff.
And unless we have another comment on that, I'd like to ask another question. You guys ready to move on to another question?
Yeah.
I have this problem with, we see people, there's a news article I read the other day about this guy who flew a Muslim flag in his front yard. And the neighborhood got offended. And then when they got offended, he decided to attack his neighbor who had an American flag and said, well, that flag offends me just like my flag offends you. So I say, which flag do you think should be hung? Do you think people have a right to hang any flag that they wish? Because there's a thing you have to be very considerate of. They may be hanging that flag as a rebellion. In that case, I think it should be completely gone. That's my opinion. Because it doesn't matter, what you think about our country. We are still an American country. And then there's also the fact that it represents their heritage and their culture, which in that case certainly preserve it.
Yeah.
That's what I want to discuss now, because that's also an American right that we have of expression. How far should that go?
I think given the circumstances, it can go either way. Because like what you said, like it can represent like a rebellion, in which case that's not good. But at the same time, yeah, it can represent someone's heritage of where they came from, where they were born, and yeah, you definitely want to preserve that because that's a piece of their history. But really, when it comes down to it, like this is also America too, and like if we can't even fly our own flag in our own country, then this goes back to the freedom thing again of like what freedom do we really have then?
We can. Well, let's keep on this topic. I can switch later.
And I agree with Kimberly. But I mean, honestly, like anybody could say, "Oh, it's for my heritage," even though it could just be a rebellious thing. Anybody.
But let's say it's not rebellious. Say there's a very proud Mexican family somewhere in New Mexico, and they're sitting there and they have the Mexican flag up with the American flag. And they do it because they want to remember where they came from, they want to remember their heritage. Is that appropriate?
I would say yes. But then again, we come back to the whole, somebody else doing it for a different.
Yeah, but we're talking about this. Let's stay on this particular instance, because some would say, why would they hang it with the American flag? Why would they say that Mexico is equal to the American flag? Some people would say, well, is the American flag on top? Because obviously they're in America, they need to respect the American flag. There's a lot of little subtleties to how a flag is represented along with the American flag or by itself. Do you think there's a right way to hang a flag to represent one's culture? Do you think there's a wrong way? What do you think?
I personally, and I might just be undereducated about this, I personally don't think there's a wrong or a right way to do it if you're doing hanging both flags, because both flags are equally important to you. One flag is who you are, your heritage, where you came from, the struggles you went through to get to America, and then, America's your new life, which is equally as important. It's the where you are now. So,
It's kind of like telling a story, basically.
yeah.
It's very difficult issue to understand. But I would further add that it's not only it can not only be like showing like one's rebellion or showing like one's heritage, but it could also be a way to express nationalism. like saying that we embrace our country wholeheartedly. Our country is could be superior to yours. It could be a sign of superiority.
So to you, it's very important how it's hung. It needs to be more respectful towards the American
I'd probably
flag.
say, for the sake of people around, how they may perceive it, I'd say like when people express a foreign flag, it should be kept inside the house, kept inside the
Huh.
house, and not be shown. Maybe maybe to avoid getting into some like political correctness issues and etc.
You might want to speak up a little bit. I don't think the computer's completely picking you up.
Oh.
But I agree with that. I think that you're one person here out of these four, but that also means that there's probably a quarter of the population who feels the same way. If there's four of us and one of us is on that plane, I'm sure there's other people in the nation who would definitely feel the same way. This is America. You came to America. Respect the fact that you're able to be here and have your culture in your house and have your American flag in or your Jewish flag or whatever you may have in your house. But don't put it up with the American flag because that American flag stands for the fact that you're able to be here. Anything else you should keep in your home to remind you of where you came from. I think that's a valid point.
Yeah, because like people around, they could see that Muslim flag, and some of them, they may understand it as like, oh, maybe it's a Muslim family, maybe they're just embracing their heritage, but I'm sure a lot of people will consider it as a form of rebellion or
Of course,
nationalism.
yeah.
Well, they're
So
known as terrorists. I mean, honestly, you look at a
exactly.
Muslim, and they actually did a video on this. I don't know if you saw it, but of women going around dressed as the traditional wear, how Muslim women are dressed, and how they are treated by people. And I just thought it was really interesting because these were just like everyday women, and some of them were even American. Like they were born here, they had nothing. They were just dressed as it, so people just assumed they were. And they were treated very differently than how they were treated when they weren't in their attire or their costume, because they weren't really. I guess that's technically what it would be considered. Um, and these were everyday people. They were nice. They weren't, terrorists or anything like that, but they were treated like, they were below everybody else. They were treated like, oh, get away from me.
So would you say there's a specific way that Americans should have to act? Because that goes back into that American right. Do we have the right to express our culture? Do we have the right to uh, dress in our traditional garb? God knows what I would have to wear with all the mixes of things that I have in my nationality. But you see, people dress up like that. You see the Indian women with the dot on their forehead. Is that a sniper dot? What is that? This is America. We don't need a dot there unless. But there's all kinds of different issues. You could get really into things like that, especially like religious freedom is a good example of the same thing. Should we be able to bring our religious freedom into the job market? Should we be able to bring our religious freedom into the open, or is that violating public safety or public concern, or is that a public disturbance? Where do those kind of things go?
I think it's all about defining like the line, which could either stop at or cross. Like I said before, you're free to express your religion, you're free to express your opinion, you're free to do as you please, as long as it's within legal grounds. But as long as that does not infringe on another person's right, I think it's all about finding like where that boundary is.
Yeah, I agree with Chris. It's kind of about that line, like you said, so much as not trying to suppress one another. Because if you think about it, America, we have the hugest issue with suppressing things on people, like, religious freedom. We have this huge battle going on of suppressing each other. And abortion, we have this huge
See,
thing
that's
of
another great
suppressing
American right
each
issue.
other. The education system, so many things that we have that we're just suppressing on each other. And it's really just about finding that line. Um, and maybe even some compromises with some issues. As much as, people might not want to agree with it or come to that. That's that's what it comes down to, because if we keep suppressing each other, honestly, we're just gonna tearing ourselves apart.
Do you think something like that would even translate, since we're talking about being American and how important that should be, that we should represent the country we're in? Do you think that would even apply to how we dress? Like not as a Muslim or anything, but do you think there should be a level of decency that Americans should strive to meet? Because we have so many people complaining about, Muslim women dressing like this or Indian women with a dot on their forehead. But what about Americans who dress, you know,
Stinky.
inappropriately?
Yeah.
Inappropriately. Do you think something like that would carry over to there? Do you think that that American right to express ourselves in whatever way we choose to dress
I
can
do.
also step over that line?
I really do because I mean we make all these complaints about like, well, this person's dressed like this. How are you dressed? Is the real question. I mean, we're trying to suppress the other side, and honestly, I haven't really heard much from them about suppressing us. It's mainly just us suppressing them, and it's like they're not in decent exposure like we are. I mean, a lot of girls, you're not gonna like me saying that because I know some of you might dress like that. You're not gonna like me saying that, but you know what? That's a fact. Get over it.
Exactly.
Well, I think you need to understand that much of the suppression you're talking about in relation to dress code, you mentioned examples like rubies on the head or like Muslim clothing. That's all based upon like what they believe in their religions. America is not really subjected to any specific doctrine, any specific religious belief or rules. How we dress, basically, it's all cultural. It's all
Mm.
culturally based.
Then you can go back to, suppressing religious freedom. We were founded on a country where you could have that freedom. I mean, half of our, finding fathers were atheists.
Yeah.
So,
They,
I mean,
they were all secularists. They all came to establish a secular government as the only government in which religious freedom could thrive.
it basically just goes back to that suppressing religion and, probably not so much compromise, but, like Chris said earlier, finding that line.
What do you think, Kimberly?
I definitely agree with what you guys have said already, and like it's just honestly to me it's just really sad that like we have in a sense crossed that line as far as like, and I know a lot of people might hate me for saying this, but like we have kind of crossed that line of like what we should be like doing or wearing of like I mean I think in a way we almost can kind of put a bad name like even just with our flag and stuff by dressing certain ways and stuff because it's like we should be representing our country, the way that it's meant to be represented, not by tarnishing it by,
Yeah.
dressing, however we feel because oh well we have the freedom to do what we want.
So do you think everybody should have to wear suits
No,
and dresses?
no, I agree. There's a level of decency though that people should definitely.
Yeah, I agree with Kimberly. I mean, we've definitely crossed it. A lot of people aren't gonna like that because, they were born with that right where, yeah, I can dress like a, and you guys are gonna like me saying this, but like a hooker because let's face it, a lot of young ladies dress like that. I can dress like that because we were born in a generation where it is okay, it has become acceptable, you know, and it's just, I really think that we should. I mean, people who think about America no longer think about the freedom, the greatness, like, oh, the land of the free. Like, they don't think about, where your dreams come true and stuff like they don't think about that. They don't. Nobody thinks about that anymore. When they think of America, they think of women who dress skanky, government who is trying to suppress, bad education system. They don't think about the stuff that we were known for, what the American flag was supposed to symbolize. And you know why? Because we did that. We did that as a generation.
Well, Kimberly, you're still, you're a little bit behind. You're still in the very last part of our, I think, our generation. You're still at that point where you've been able to experience that crossover of technology and that crossover of religious freedom and all these different things happening. You go to the same school that me and Chris went to, that we graduated from. What would you say is the major difference that you see between being in school and being outside of school, if any, be about how young ladies are dressing, behind how young men treat each woman, how religion is tolerated. What, would you say there's a significant difference between when you're at school and when you're outside in public? Would you say there's an issue with that? What's your opinion on looking at that transition?
Well, I would definitely say that in a way, I kind of feel like in our school, and maybe this is also because we're such a small school. I mean, I know you guys even remember that from being there. Um, I think part of it is that in a way, we're kind of like overprotected in a sense. Like, I think they kind of shield us from
Yeah.
what the world's really
The
like. 'Cause,
great
like,
accusation of all Christians.
yeah, because I mean, we've had like, for instance, you even just look at simple things of like when we've had like um, various like emergency situations like lockdowns or something like that, and then when it comes down to it we find out that what was really going on was not anything where we were really in danger, or stuff like that, where it's like they're trying to watch out for us, but to a certain extent they're doing it so much that they're not allowing us to stand on our own 2 feet.
What would you think maybe at your age, if you were able to stand on your own 2 feet, you might be expressing yourself the same way that many kids in public school do, getting pregnant at a young age, dressing inappropriately, using language that may not be becoming of yourself or the honor of your family, drinking at a younger age, which I will admit I'm guilty of, but still I was raised in an environment where you were cautious with how you acted when you drank. Different things like that. Would you say that maybe that sheltering could be a good thing, or would you say that totally affects how your future is going to end and how difficult it may be for your transition?
I can kind of see a little bit of both on it because I would argue for what you say about that the sheltering's good, but also in reality, when you think about it, eventually we're all going to have to go out into the real world, with like job market and all that. And I know that's a whole other
We're
topic.
just
We'll get
about
into
there. We're
that.
almost there.
But the other thing is if they never teach us to stand on our own 2 feet, then how will we ever learn to be able to, like, for instance, stand up for what we believe in and be able to, voice an opinion about
So
that?
you know what's interesting about this? Just listening to that basic last sentence, I'm gathering that we have that freedom and that right to be able to stand on our own and make our own decisions, good or bad, and that in the end it's about how we're using that to represent ourselves
Exactly.
as Americans and how we're able to use that to represent the good intention and the understanding of who we are as Americans and so on and so forth. We can dress scanty if we want to, but we need to recognize that that's rubbing off on our country and our families. That we can walk on our American flag, but that is going to be degrading our freedom that we claim to be celebrating. That we can be able to read the Bible or not, and realize that if we do or do not, how we act outside of that will also represent how we've been raised and the country that we live in. That's what I kind of gathered from that last
Yeah.
sentence. And that may be a little out of the box, but that's where my brain was at when you were talking
Well,
about
I was
that.
actually pretty much going down that road too, so yeah.
So I think that's a really good way to kind of sum up the conversation with American rights. And we can always get into other things. What about the LGBT community and equal marriage? We can get into abortion.
Yeah.
We can get into
Many things stem off that.
vigilantes, the court system. There's all kinds of other ways we
The
can fight
death
about.
penalty.
There's all kinds of different things we can talk about when it comes to American rights and what we should or should not be able to do, and what is right or wrong. And that would be a religious argument. So I'm going to save that for when I'm able to get some interesting people with a very religious and strong opinion on that, and we'll discuss that later on in another episode. But I really,
Interesting.
I really think that kind of sums that idea up. That no matter what we're doing, whether it be abortion, equal marriage, or whatever we do, we need to be aware of how it's going to affect our families and our freedoms, and what it's going to say to the rest of the world. That's significant, I think. Now going back to dressing. That kind of every time I see a girl walking down the street and she's wearing next to nothing, I'm always sitting there going, I wonder if she has a job. Like seriously, it's just what I'm thinking. I'm kind of transitioning to the other topic, but when I see somebody dressing a certain way, I always think, am I dressing in a way that would get me a job? I don't know. I think everybody in here would probably be able to get a job, with the exception of Aileen, because she's got a hole in her shirt. She's obviously going to get fired, so she's not going to keep a job.
Hey,
But
I was supposed to sew it up, but it hasn't happened yet.
But I look at all these people, stomping on the flag and wearing ridiculous clothing and with a flag that isn't our country's, and I wonder, where are they going? Where are they going with this? Is this something that they're just doing in the moment, or is this something that they feel is going to make them a stronger American? Because when it comes down to it, if you get a job, there's, two different kinds of jobs. There's one where you're proud to be in that job and you are representing the America we know and love, or there's that job you're just doing to survive and it's not bringing much honor to anyone.
Yeah.
And when I see people walking around doing these different things, I wonder, is this why perhaps we're having so many problems with immigration and the job market and everything that's coming up with the new bills and things we have being passed? I mean, they have the bill now where immigrants are going to be able to come in and get our jobs. So Americans are going to be suffering while these other people get jobs. What do you think about that? About this whole thing?
Like if they come over, like they get a job, like
No, just about everything I just said about the job market and how all this is going to affect our country.
Yeah, I was talking about like the immigrants. I don't know too much about that, so I was.
Because we're not discussing rights anymore. That would be a total right issue. Do they have the right to a job? Do they have a right to take care
No,
of families?
I just want to
Right.
know like exactly what it is.
Okay.
'Cause I don't know much about it.
Basically, the issue is we're going to let people who are wanting to immigrate here and become legal or otherwise suspend whether or not they're legals here, so that way they can get jobs and establish themselves here in our country. And the basic uproar is that where are we going to get jobs?
Yeah.
Why are we letting other people get jobs when they're not technically citizens yet,
Yeah.
and we can't even get jobs?
I think it kind of stems back to like the one word that really came to my mind when I heard you say that was equality, and how in the beginning um, our country was fighting for equality. You know, even going back to um, slavery and women's rights, and like that equality should mean that they should be able to have the same freedom to like pursue what they want to do. But I don't think that means that that should give them like so much priority that it's almost like, this is probably a really weird example, like getting a fast pass to go on Space Mountain at Disneyland.
Just
I
because
think,
because they can't afford the ticket doesn't mean they should get a free one.
yeah, like we had to work for what we want, so like really like that should be the same for everyone.
And I'm sure all the Disneyland fans are a little mad at you, but I think they'll understand.
Hey, I'm a Disneyland fan too. So my question about it is someone helping them get the jobs, or is it like something if they're here, they can get the job, but
A
they have
little
to do
bit
it
of
on their
both.
own?
It depends on the family. There's a
Okay.
lot of technicalities. I think you need to research that yourself.
All right, I
I
got the
mean,
gist.
it goes all over the place. Depending on who you talk to, the argument changes. You talk to a Republican, it's a different argument than a Democrat because everybody sees it from a different perspective. So I'm trying to keep it in the middle and kind of vague.
Yeah, I think I get the gist of what the bill is now. I didn't know anything about it, so
Yeah,
I wanted
yeah.
to.
So with that coming on, jobs are going to get harder to find.
Yeah.
I have a job right now, and thankfully my job is fairly protected because you have to have money to get involved, and you have to have a little bit of a brain to stay in it. I know Raylene does a little bit of babysitting, but even she's having a hard time finding a 5 to 9 or whatever job. What are you guys doing right now to try and get a job? Do you think you're going to be able to get a job soon, or do you think you're going to have to really struggle for one? Do you want a job right now? Are you going to school right now? What are your ambitions as far as jobs go?
I'm just focusing on college at the moment, and like right now, I go to a 2-year community college, as you know, and I'm just kind of working to get my associates of transfer degree specifically, and then I'm going to decide whether or not I want to head towards university, or if I want to take a break after this 2 years and kind of look around and see if I get some experience in some other fields like trade or any kind of union job.
Yeah.
I think that's so important like nowadays is to kind of be like well-rounded in that way you have more job opportunities because if you really specialize in like one specific thing then that's only like one opportunity and you have to look at like well how much in demand is this one thing that I'm working for.
Yeah, that's true. Now, what are you guys working towards? Like you said you want to do like a trade.
Yeah.
What kind of trade specifically? Do you have an idea, or are you still kind of spitballing on what you want to do?
Well, I do have my eyes on one kind of trade. Specifically, would be what was it?
Let's speak up just a little more.
HVAC technician.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to see if I could get into work as a HVAC technician, which you know what that is.
How about you explain it?
Heating, ventilation, air
There
conditioning.
you go.
Yeah, so.
Because I've actually sold to your trade, so Because I was a warehouse manager for a while, so I had a
Yeah.
lot of experience in having to get them to certain things, and they're very picky with the parts they can have. So I understand
Yeah,
what
so
you're saying.
that's been something I've been looking into.
Okay. What about you, Kimberly? What are your aspirations? Because I know that you're still in high school right now. You're almost there. So what
Almost.
kind of things are you looking at, and how possible do you think it's going to be to get there?
Well, obviously, I want to get through high school first. That's the main thing I'm
That is
looking
your
at.
job right now.
Yep. And then after that, like, I've been looking into like the majors that I want to go into, and like, I think especially throughout my high school career, I have kind of morphed a little bit on like what I've like wanted to do and stuff. And part of it is because I think throughout high school I've more been able to really find out a lot about myself. But then also part of it is also like I'm thinking about like practicality of
Yeah.
like, what type of thing could I get into that I love, but at the same time it'll actually be something where I can actually see myself as doing it and being able to succeed in it and having it be something that is actually,
So you can serve your
useful.
family and everything else.
Yeah, yeah.
Makes sense. What about you, Ray? What are you gonna do? Are you want to be a professional hamburger joint owner, or do you want to be like a CEO? What kind of job are you looking for?
I don't know. I mean, I'm just kind of applying for anything right now. Still debating. I probably will go back to college though. Um, I don't know. Like I said, I'm just trying to find a job, just something to do because I haven't really made up my mind about college. But at the same time, like I'm sure everybody understands watching this, there's a lot of pressure. You need to go to college. You need to do this.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I
And
mean, I'm sitting here going, I can hear my mom right now going, if you go to college and get that certificate, you can get a job. Do you really think that's still this? Do you think it still works that way? What do you think about that? Because I'm
I
sitting here thinking everything you're saying. I'm trying to get a job. I'm applying everywhere. I can hear my mom saying, You need to go to college. They'll help you get a job. You get a certificate. People will hire you more."
That's not always
I
a guarantee.
I
Nope.
think it's I still think it's 50-50 with that, but I
Mhm.
feel like the college thing has risen a little higher than it was before because I know the demand for a lot of jobs. Even fast food places now, you need to have, they want a college certificate. So say,
It's actually important.
Chris and I are applying for the same job. Okay, it's a fast food joint. I don't have my college certificate. He does. They're automatically going to choose him because
Even
they
if you
consider
have more
him.
experience than he does.
They're going to consider him more
Yeah.
qualified.
Wow.
My mom, one of her friends at her work lost her job. She was there for years, and they hired a new person with almost no experience because they had a college
That's
certificate.
ridiculous. But then at the same time, maybe that's because they have to struggle so much more because you have to pay so much more and struggle so much more for an education now. So wouldn't that say, well, they're determined enough to do this, so obviously they have more determination than the average Joe who's just looking for
And
a
then you
job.
might have like a
But
student
then you
debt that you
also
have
have
to pay
to
off too.
question, the people who have been there for 20, 15, 30 years who get laid off because, some new kid who doesn't have any experience under their belt has a college certificate.
But
And that's
obviously,
not fair to
obviously
them
they never
either.
had the motivation to get themselves a certificate. They could have done it, how many times in that 25-year period?
And then, with today's economy, you have to question, well, how old are they? Do they have kids? How many kids do they have? Do they have a husband to help
There's so
them?
many factors.
So would you say that maybe some people deserve a job more rather than are qualified more? Is the difference?
I would say yes, because I feel like if you've been there for years and years, obviously you know what you're doing by now. You're skilled in enough because they've kept you for 20 or plus years. And I just don't think it's fair to, throw that away.
With all that experience on their resume, don't you think they can get a job pretty quickly?
I would say yes, if they're looking for, something that say they want to do the same profession or something like that, then yes. Or anything else, I feel like they probably could. But at the same time, you also have to think about the benefits that come along with a job when you've been there for so many years, because when you go there for so many years, you get benefits. And I know a lot of jobs are firing people because they don't want to pay those benefits. That's also another reason why they're hiring new people, even though they don't have a lot of
And they'll have like
experience under their belt.
part-time work for them
I always
because
find
they
that
have to.
interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, if what's so hard about getting benefits? You want an employee to work for you for a long time, know the ins and outs of what you're trying to get them to do, and you want them to be sticking with you, so you don't have to keep changing all the tax information all the time. Benefits seem like a reasonable way to do that.
Yeah. But for me, I don't know. I'm trying to find a job. It's hard. I apply for like 3, 4 jobs daily. I mean, there's days when I slack and I apply for a job or I don't apply at all. But for the most part, I do try, guys. I do. And the whole college thing, like I said, I think everyone understands the pressure of being forced into college because of the demand for college certificates.
So speaking
I'm
of
honestly
college,
totally about the point.
speaking of college, this brings up another question. Does a college degree, should a college degree be a valid qualification?
It's a great question. Because on one side you could say, well, this shows that they're
Don't
determined,
mind
that
me,
they
I was
got,
just cut off.
well, yeah, Chrissy's his turn too. But you know, on one
We all
side,
gotta pitch in.
on one side of this argument, you could say, well, this certificate says that they've been highly focused in this area. On the other side, you could say anybody could pay $300 and pass a class.
Mhm.
You
It could
know,
also be focused on this specific area, which is not even relevant to the job.
yeah, or you know, somebody without a certificate could come along with 40 years of experience and say, I've done this for 40 years, and then some kid who's been in a class gets this job. I don't know. I would think that it could go both ways.
Because book knowledge is very different from actual hands-on
It is.
experience.
Of course.
I mean, with hands-on experience, you're actually learning like the ins and outs. Because with a book, it's more teaching you ideally how something should go.
Yeah.
But when you're actually doing the hands-on experience, you might run into like little problems that you have to work out, and you would need to know how to work those out in a real life situation.
Now, well, let's take you, Kimberly, for an example. Just pretend your dream is Broadway. Just pretend. Okay, you're in show choir, right? And you've got lots of dancing and singing experience, correct?
Yes.
And you're pretty confident that you could get into a Broadway performance as an extra.
Okay.
Yeah? Yeah, this is a hypothetical situation.
Yeah.
So you go to Broadway, and you say, I have entire high school repertoire of show choir, and I know the ins and outs of this. I can do an audition for you right now. This kind of thing. Hey, Mom, you're on camera right now, just to let you know. Ooh.
She's
Right.
presenting you guys with ice cream.
She's trying to
teasing
distract you from the job market. Get her. we would love, but we're halfway through.
I feel like this is like
Huh?
explaining my life right here. Like,
I know.
oh, I gotta do this. Food?
Squirrel.
I'm gonna need a snapshot of you now to put onto the page. I'm just saying you were a guest star. Anyway, but you have all this stuff, and you go there, and you are determined. You have the experience. You have the know-how. You're ready to go and willing. And then another person comes in for the same role that you want, and they've been in college for 6 years, and they've studied the ins and outs of theaters. But you and the director can tell that they don't quite have the hard work initiative and everything else, but they still hire them because they have a certificate. Is that fair?
No, I don't think so. No.
But they have a certificate and they know everything. They're so book smart they can turn you inside out
And
with all the
that's just
information.
it. Like a book can only teach you so much.
But they can do it. They can pull it off.
I feel
They,
like
they may not want it as much, but they need the money.
Like I should also add that, from what I've researched into college degree qualification for jobs, typically managers, they actually don't care. In many places, managers don't care what you major in. They just look at the fact that you have a degree, and then you get the job.
Yeah, I've heard of that too. I really think it could go both ways. I think the only thing that really I don't know, like just upsets me and kind of makes me mad is that the fact of, like I was talking earlier about the situation with my mom's friend. She was there for 20 plus years and she just got canned even though she had so much experience so they could fit in this new person who had a certificate. And it wasn't because they thought that person was more qualified. It was, and my mom found this out, and her friend, and they were really upset when they found out. It was just because her friend was at the point where she was going to get more benefits, and they didn't want to pay that benefit. So they fired her.
So she was there for a long time. She worked hard. She gave them everything they had, and they didn't want to help her out. That sounds fair.
They fired her, and then they told her, oh, but you can come and try again to apply for us.
Oh, and do another 40 years and get nothing for it? Yeah, that sounds great. Welcome to America's job market, everyone. I gotta tell you, I'm a little frustrated with the job market. I got a job. I just got a job. I work security, and if you do it right and if you follow the rules, it's a secure job. But the thing that I don't get is you work as a security officer, well, potentially something bad can happen every day, and you don't get benefits. You don't get benefits for it, and you have to go through this thing where they can fire you at any time. Do you think that's something that America should be concerned about? Or even if you do get a job, you never have that security. Unless you're a 10 years teacher or a really valued member of the organization. Do you think that's fair? That not only do you have to have a certificate to get a job, but even if you don't, your job is always at risk for somebody else coming in who's a little more qualified and not taking you. Because that's what happened with the job I had before. Somebody was more qualified, came in, took my job.
That's why I think seniority should be so important in jobs because I mean, when you have an employee like in your situation that you just talked about, when you have an employee who's been working somewhere for a really long amount of time, like they should have some sense of security. You know, they should have some sense of
But why?
respect because they've worked hard and they've been there a long time.
So the company has to pay the bills. So, giving out that benefit is just one more hassle. Giving out a contract and making sure they have a job is just one more problem. Why should they have to do that? Why is it American to make sure that people have security? Why is it something we should have to do?
Well, I would definitely say it goes back to, well, like I said, respect. But then the other thing is, it's like once you've had someone that's been dedicated to your company for so long, and to just repay them like that by, like saying like, oh, goodbye, you're out of here. It's like you completely forget like what they've even been doing and the impact that they've made on your company, and it's horrible.
I always view it like this. The number one thing in America that we have lost is a sense of unity and family.
Yeah,
I agree.
I agree with that.
Because I've noticed this in myself, and I've voiced this on videos that I've had on my channel. I don't half the time know what my neighbors are doing. They're right next door. I see them. I wave at them. But I can't remember the last time I went over there. If I need to borrow sugar, you know what I do? I go buy sugar. It's easy. Never do, but I don't cook, so. But the point being, this needs to carry over to a job market. You look at a job, I have an amazing boss. Don't benefits, but I have an amazing boss, and I feel confident that if I work hard, he'll be on my back and make sure that I'm able to stay there. And that's rare.
Yeah.
You go to, I know Baker's has a few places, I know there's a few McDonald's. The manager could give a rat's butt about you. Like, they're there to get paid. If you get in the way of them getting paid, bye-bye. I think America's lost that sense of we work together, we are a family. We know each other. You are adopted into our family. You're practically my brother. You're practically my sister with no biological relation. But I feel that way because we've known each other long enough. I feel that there's more to America than just using people.
When you've gone through a lot with someone, you become like a team, and you guys bond together and you work together.
I feel that way about Ray all the time. What would happen? What would happen if, hypothetically, Ray and I got together and I was just using the relationship to try and make myself feel good? Hypothetically. Not that that ever happened. But, that would be an improper relationship. But what would happen if every person who got into a friendship or dating relationship didn't use the relationship, but gave something to the relationship?
That makes so much better.
Yeah.
Brought something to the table. Instead of a job saying, yeah, you can work for me, I'm going to put you minimum wage so I can make more money, and you don't get benefits, only I do because I'm a manager. Instead of doing that, they said, welcome to the family, let's see if we can get you some benefits, let's try and get you some decent pay that we can afford, because we can afford it, we just don't want it, that's always the problem. Let's see what we can do. If I can't get you this job, maybe I can refer you someplace, you seem like a great guy. What would happen if we went back to that day and age where even though you had to work hard and take the trolley or whatever you had to do, to get to your job, and you had to wear a suit everywhere you went just in case there was a job opportunity. What if we went back to that time and looked at, the different value systems? I'm not saying people were nice all the time. I'm not saying people were pleasant all the time. But if you worked hard and you impressed somebody, you got the job. If you went in and looked disrespectful, you didn't get the job. They threw you out. If you look respectful and they couldn't help you, they tell somebody about you, you can get a job. I think if we had that mentality with family, jobs, relationships, America would be a fixed place.
Yeah. And I just want to disclose that doesn't mean like we, way back then it was,
No, it's
like
not
now
always peachy. We're human beings.
I just want to like disclose to the people, who want to.
Disclosure: life stinks.
Like we know,
Yeah,
back
there's all
then
kinds of problems.
it was still the same way. Back then it was still the same way as it is now, but the ratio was higher of people being more
But
family friendly.
you look at a little bit of my family history. My mother's side was immigrants here. They came here and they started a farm. They did that, then they had, the family went everywhere, and our branch of the family came into California. He worked hard, he did everything he could, he had a disability, and he still pulled through it, and people recognized that, and he was able to survive. He was able to keep my mother alive, he was able to take care of his wife, even with all the medical issues that were there, and do all this. And thankfully, because of that, she was able to marry a very honorable man, who I've already talked about today, and they were able to adopt me and my sister and take care of us, and now we're able to carry on a tradition of working hard, appreciating everyone, and being a good old-fashioned American. And that's all because of that idea of working hard, treating people with respect, and recognizing everyone's abilities. Because if my family's immigrants had come over and put a farm there, but nobody had helped them, you think the farm would have lasted long? If the family wasn't willing to overcome things and be united in one place, you think they would be as far as they could. If they didn't, keep up the farm, you think they would have survived. If they didn't all work together to try and go places, you think I'd even be here right now. And that's America we should be.
Yeah, and I actually want to go back to something you said earlier about like thinking about more of giving than getting. Is like if you really think about it, if both people are giving, for instance, in like a relationship or something, then when you really think about it, then both people are getting too. So it's like you give a little, you take a little, but in the end it all balances out because if both people really have a mutual care for each other, then they're gonna want to make each other both happy, and then
you want to add to it. You don't want like either side to take away from you.
Yeah.
It's all about what this person can offer, what you can offer, and if that person can offer, and if that person can offer like anything, all you're doing is giving and giving, and eventually you're gonna like kind of run out.
Yeah.
You're gonna kind of run dry.
Yeah.
Yep,
So
you can't fill a bank if nobody is moving money.
Yeah, you need reciprocation. You need reciprocation.
Definitely.
That's very true. So here's my question for you. Summing up everything, we're going to talk about time travel. Okay, there's always got to be something fun that we have to talk about. Last time we talked about X-Men and God knows what else.
The Flash.
This time we're going to talk.
Time travel in the
Yeah,
Flash.
yeah.
Watch it. He's amazing.
I do not support this, but anyway, my channel does support her anyway. But
and the Arrow. Watch the Arrow.
But Arrow's good. But time travel. So we're talking about this older America. We're talking about this different world. So let's discuss a little bit. We see these theoretical movies where there's time travel involved. We see Terminator where they send back a robot to try and change the future so the entire population doesn't get murdered by machines. We see
The Flash.
we see Star Trek where Data has to go back and save Mark Twain's century from getting overrun by aliens, so that way people don't die and they're able to keep going forward and make these advances and wonderful things happen.
We got Doctor Who.
We got all these different time travel shows that show a better tomorrow. We even have some that show a worse tomorrow.
Yep.
My question to you is, first off, do you think?
Yeah. Like not so much good or bad, just different outcomes.
Yeah. So, my first question is, do you think time travel is possible? And my second question would be, if you could go back in time anywhere, where would you go and why?
Okay, so first question, is time travel possible?
Is time travel possible? Why?
Because I want to believe it is.
So, fairies are real.
I'm sorry, guys, I'm not.
I do believe in fairies, I do.
I do like science, I do like learning and discussing it, but I'm not a very educated person about the whole matter of it. I do know a fair amount of it, but I honestly, guys, I'm just lazy. I don't want to go into it.
Okay, what about you, Kimberly?
I'm kind of like Rayleigh. I hope it's possible, but I don't know because I'm not like one of these people that like sits in like some high tech college or something where it's like I'm really like focusing on this and being like, okay, like scientifically with the facts given, is this possible? Like I don't know that, but like I mean I can't speak for the future, so I don't know.
You just hope that you're given the opportunity to discuss it and learn something about it.
Exactly.
Well, on that note, I'm afraid me and Chris have already discussed this a little bit. And now I'm really interested to have Chris reiterate and perhaps change his opinion or add to his opinion that he had previously stated. Chris, do you believe in time travel?
Well, it depends on where you're going. If you go into the past, I don't believe it's possible. If you go into the future, well, we're time traveling right now as we speak. we're time traveling into the future as we speak, but at kind of a moderate pace, you see, and it's all relative to gravity, because like the Einstein theory of relativity.
Because if we can move
like,
faster, time would go
exactly.
faster.
And if you are the further away you are from the influence of gravity, the faster time is going to go, or the slower time will go for you, but the faster time will go below.
Relativity is a huge factor. I mean, like say someone's on the moon, when you walk, it's slower. So would you say time slows down? No, but because you feel.
Yes, relative to you. Relative to you in comparison to like people on Earth. Time for you slows down.
Or like when you're having a really good time somewhere and it seems like time just flies by. Like when you go to I'm gonna redeem myself here.
Yep.
When you go to Disneyland and you're having an amazing time and time just flies by.
It always goes by too fast.
Because I just had a choir competition at Disneyland and it seemed like the day just went by so fast.
Gone.
There's like the different theories of time travel and how it would work, and if it was possible, like we could only do this much or that much. There's the theory of like only going to the past and the future, and how you would, how you would have to moderate yourself there. So.
Okay. Now, Chris, you said we couldn't go backwards in time. Why not?
I don't believe we could go backwards in time because, well, it's difficult because. Also.
What is Superman? What's your point?
Superman's awesome.
The way Superman did it, like, completely defied, like, billions of laws of physics.
But he's Superman.
He can do anything. Even beat Batman.
I don't think traveling back in time is possible because in order to do that, there is one theory, and that involves the use of a wormhole, which is something that's only theoretical, and we have yet to, like, access or tap into, like, the power of it. We don't even know if wormholes exist. We know black holes exist, but we don't know if they lead to another dimension or another plane in the space-time
Well, if they
continuum.
made a spaceship for me, I would go in and find out. But
so far, there's just like a theory.
They say that's a bad idea.
I'm still with you. I got to find this out.
So there's no way to go back in time unless you're somehow able to go to an alternate universe in which the past is going on as we speak, like the past relative to us is going on in this universe or in this other dimension.
But you see all these shows, like we have Fringe, we have Star Trek, we have all these shows where you could just get into a transporter accident or infuse somebody's brain with some magical chemical, you can go back in time. Do you think those shows are totally bogus? Or do you think there might be a little bit of logic to it?
There might be, yeah, but they're talking about concepts and mechanisms that there's no way for us to be able to have access to.
I feel like it's all a matter of scientific advancement, how advanced we are.
Are we advanced yet to jump through a hole in space?
I feel like there's so many things possible that we can do, but we're just not advanced enough scientifically for it. We have all these theories about it and how it would happen, but then there comes a question of technology.
It's just theoretical.
Like, granted, we have technology that we don't know about that they're keeping secret and stuff. And,
aliens do exist.
But the government hides everything.
Statistically, aliens do exist, but we will discuss this further in another video.
Yeah.
So my reasoning is no, we cannot travel back in time. And yes, we can travel forward in time. And I don't believe in the theory of relativity as far as where we are affects how fast it goes. I believe in the sense that if we're moving slower, we would understand different standard of time. It's kind of the same idea of relativity. I think it's a little different. I could be wrong. And I do believe that if you're able to speed up everything, you'll be able to travel faster forward in time. And if I could go back in time, I'd kill my dog right there because it's annoyingly loud. But I think it's very possible you could speed up heart rates. I think it's very possible you could speed up the activity of the brain. I think it's very possible you could make gravity a different way so you can move faster. So you can be like Flash, and you can live at a different time rate and thus travel faster in time. Backwards, I don't think so. Why? Because how are you going to bring someone back from the dead?
That's very true.
Like, say I want to go back in time so I could see my father one more time. How am I going to have the science so I can go backwards and make sure all the other cars and all the other people and all the other things in the universe go backwards at the same rate I'm going backwards without running into each other.
Yeah.
And then how am I going to get the casket that he's in to come up above the ground, open itself, get in a hearse, go backwards? How am I going to make all that happen, let alone trying to reignite a life?
Then there comes the whole theory of you can't go backwards in time, but there's other alternate universes that you can step into.
Yeah. So that's a little bit of a different question.
You're talking more
and
about...
that goes back to technology.
Yeah, you're talking more about going back in time in a sense, like, you don't have to go anywhere, you don't have to go through any wormhole. You're just, like, kind of forced to be...
No, that goes with everything. If there's a wormhole that gets us back in time, we have to be able to go back in time. Still. It still has all the physical aspects of having to reverse the sun's rotation,
I don't think so.
reversing gravity. I think it does.
Because, like, a wormhole, like, you see, the way a wormhole works is that the universe is flat. Our universe is flat. And the way a wormhole works is like, it's like, think paper, you know. You draw a dot, like one, like, end of the paper.
Okay.
You draw a dot on the other end of the paper. Yeah, you see, look how far this is. But then if you fold the paper, there you go, you get a shortcut.
But they're still split.
The split?
You gotta connect them.
Yeah, you gotta connect
them. Because the dots look like they're connected doesn't mean the paper is physically one at the same time.
Bending the space-time continuum.
But there's still two space-time continuums, they're just folded.
But
they're not one piece of paper connected like this. They're two pieces of the same paper coming together.
Yeah.
Yes. But I say
until they collide, they cannot physically become one time.
I say between like the two holes, there's a tunnel which could, not influence or not affect anything outside of that. So it would not affect the laws of physics within this certain time period. It would not affect laws of physics in this dimension.
But wouldn't folding the piece of paper be bending something physical?
You see, I'm no expert in physics.
So by saying that none of the physics changed, then you can't bend a piece of paper and you can't have the wormhole concept. Damn.
We're not scientists, people.
We're just kids having a good time. But I agree with Chris. I don't think you could go back in time unless there's a wormhole. And as of yet, the science and the wormhole does not exist.
Yeah. Well, I think you can do it because the Flash did it.
I think you can do it because Star Trek did it.
Superman did it.
Star Trek makes sense. Right?
Superman makes sense.
You also got to deal with a plethora of paradoxes that you may run into going back in time, like the bootleg paradox, there's a grandfather paradox, there's a predestination paradox.
Yeah.
All these could interfere with our experiences through time. Like, say, for example, the predestination paradox. This person reads in this newspaper this elementary school got caught on fire, and he has a time machine. He's like, oh gosh, I want to prevent this disaster from ever happening. So he goes back in time, he finds the elementary school, he goes to it, he looks around to see what could have caused the fire and how he could prevent it from happening. The next thing you know, without noticing, he knocks over a lamp and causes that fire.
Oops.
In the first place.
Like Final Destination.
If something's meant to happen, you have to ask yourself, well, going back in time, would you be able to change that?
Because if it wasn't for that, you wouldn't be able to go back in time in the first place. That's kind of what the story that's kind of what the story of the Time Machine by H.G. Wells revolves around.
And then there's also that Star Trek idea of the Temple Time Directive. Don't change anything because it can change the entire shift of things. But then if you change the entire shift of thing, you go to Back to the Future, you disappear.
Yeah.
So if you're not existent, can you actually change?
Yeah. Good point.
Because as soon as you disappear from existence, here's the thing about Back to the Future. If Marty McFly did disappear after changing everything back, just pretend like after changing and making sure his father and mother found love, and because they found love, he was ceased to exist from his timeline. Just pretend what he still had changed that timeline. It's just you get so many overcomplicated ideas that you can just mix into those. There's science, there's actualities, there's paradoxes. There's so many things that can be complicated.
And backtracking to what you said about how can the universe or how can the space-time continuum fold like that? That is
because you can't bend. If the argument is that it would be outside of physics, and yet you use a physical example.
That is the theoretical, that's a theoretical principle to explain wormholes. So it's kind of weird, how do they work around?
Sorry, science, I just destroyed your wormhole theory.
Yeah, where's your credentials?
Boom! Teenager, that's my past credential. Now I'm retired from teenager, and I'm 20-year-old, so obviously I'm a genius now.
Oh, yeah. I feel like if someone more educated were to have this talk, they would like
Well,
crush our ideas.
they're welcome to come to the channel. I would
It's
love to have you.
spiritual
If you're a scientist and you think you're smarter, come to the channel. I'm willing to learn.
I personally say if any experts out there, if any astrophysicist is out there, they would really disagree with you.
Yeah, probably. I disagree with you half the time. But okay, so moving on, because there is vanilla ice cream waiting for us.
What would we change?
What would you change? Raylene, if you could go back in time, what would be the one thing that you could change if you knew that there were no significant consequences to anyone that you know or love?
This is going to sound extremely stupid, but this is the only one I can think of because just it's embarrassing, so why not? And you all are gonna laugh and tease me.
Oh, sorry.
Especially him. I already know he is. But tell a story at your own risk, I guess. Whatever. I would go back in time and change the one time I started in class in 4th grade.
I actually peed myself.
No, this is why. This is why. This is why. Because it wasn't just like a little fart. We're like, like a few people heard it. The entire class heard it, and I was asleep, and I just woke up to everyone staring at me. I woke up to everyone staring at me, and for 2 years, people called me Fart Girl.
Oh.
Best super name ever, because you know you are a superhero.
So, on top of already being bullied, I was bullied even more for something I couldn't control because I was
Spend the fart on them.
Yeah.
What's that
I
problem?
mean, I can't control my butt when I'm asleep. I'm sorry.
Okay, what about you, Kimberly? Were you fart girl too?
No. But I think for me, the things that I would change are more, and I know this is pretty far-fetched to say, I think I would want to change more things along the lines of, like, disasters that had happened, things throughout history.
So if you could pick one disaster.
Okay, I'm just going to name the first one that comes to my head. I'm going to say something maybe like the Holocaust. Something like that.
Now I feel bad because mine's not that.
Frankie.
Okay, we're still filming, people. Everybody's going to think that you guys have lost your minds. So
I want to show them this cute little
let's
puppy.
keep moving. So you changed the Holocaust. What about you?
It's hard to think of one thing I've changed, but
Chris is talking, my friend. I'm going to tell him about how terrible your YouTube channel is.
it's difficult to think of one thing I'd change, but I'd say I would change, my past, but not in the way you may expect. I would want to somehow have my consciousness, my memories, everything I've learned up to this point. I go back in time and have that information
Download it
into myself when I was like, say, I don't know, maybe 1st grade.
13 months old.
And using that.
Whoa, now you got suey.
I don't think my 13-month-old brain would be able to process all that. But
Stewie could.
Stewie was born with a highly developed brain.
But no, if there's one thing that changed, I would love to be in 1st grade and have all the memories and information I've learned up to this point, so I could see how what decisions I can make based off that.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so probably not the answer you expect. That's just the only thing that comes to mind.
Mine is terrible. I feel terribly ashamed. But if I could go back in time and do any one thing, I would go back in time and tell Michael Jackson to be my friend.
Nice.
And that's more of a pity thing, I think, because Michael Jackson, if you read anything that he had, was excessively lonely. And me, I'm obsessive over him, but at the same time, I could have a decent relationship with him, I think. So me, I just want to be part of that entire story because he inspires me more than any other person, but the thing that always hurts the fans is the fact that he felt alone even with all of us just loving him. So I want to go back in time and tell him to look me up when I'm old enough, so that way we can be friends and I can kind of help him just reach that much farther because I feel like he was actually hindered by that kind of pain. Because if you listen to his music, there's kind of always that pain there. I think he could have gone really so much farther and really inspired more people.
Well, if you think about it, fans are kind of more like impersonal because they're like
he
they're
still loved
screaming when you come up on stage.
He still loved his fans, and they felt love, but it's a different type of love.
Yeah,
it wasn't a real friendship. I mean, there's a rabbi that wrote a book about meeting Michael Jackson. He said while he knew Michael Jackson was much happier. He was much easier to get along with. He did a lot more with his children. He was more outgoing. I mean, it changed the way he was. And Michael Jackson, to me, changed history. So I think how much greater would it be if he still had a constant friend through those later years? You know, maybe his life would have ended so short and abruptly.
Yeah.
Who knows? That's me, but I'm number one Michael. So, yeah, that's what I would do if I could go back in time.
It's really nice. Selflessly.
So I just love the guy. I think, you know, someone like that deserved more than he actually got. And that's just what I feel. So, but, you know. Okay, last question, because I thought of it right now. Favorite time travel movie? Go. Rating.
Back to the Future.
Which one?
I don't know. It's so hard.
Mine's the third one.
It's hard. I can't say.
Well, I'll laugh. What about you?
I would say the first one if I had to pick one.
Okay.
You know what? I'm gonna have my inner kid speaking here. I'm gonna say Luther Robinson.
That was a pretty good one. We talked about that. That's good. Chris?
I'd have to say, many people like have strong criticism, like negative criticism towards this movie, but I personally thought it was really nice. It really fit the story. I'd have to go with the Time Machine. The movie that the 2000, I believe it was 2001, or 2001 or 2000 movie adaptation. Yeah.
I like that movie. Hot Time.
It was the early 2000s.
Oh God.
The Hot
They have
Tub
a
Machine?
second. They have a second one out now. That
What?
movie is weird.
What's it actually called?
I've heard about that.
Hot Tub Time Machine.
I've heard about that.
Yeah.
I've heard about it and I kind of
I've seen some ads about it.
But then like I see the previews and the ads.
No!
But yeah, the Time Machine for me. What about you?
It's the hardest question to ask me because there's so many fantastic time traveling movies out there. Well, since going forward in time is considered time traveling, I'm gonna pick the Bicentennial Man. Have you? I know you saw that with your family. I gave it to your family for Christmas. Did you watch it with the robot? So Robin Williams, he plays a robot whose only longing is to serve and be human.
Yes, we watched it.
It's like the most amazing story, and he lives through 200 years of his family's history. And to me, it's a significant time travel movie because it shows that time travel isn't always about going backwards. It's also about living where you are and traveling through time, making a difference as you go. That's how I view time, because I know the reality of time travel is I can never go back and change things in my life, so I want to live like I'm not going to have tomorrow. And that movie, to me, is the perfect time travel movie. If you want to pick one that goes back in time and get real technical with me, be tied between Terminator 2 and First Contact, Star Trek. It would be a really close tie between those two because they both have that significant theme of you can do something bigger and better, but at the end of the movie, history still unfolds.
Yeah.
So I really like those two the best. And that's just me. So, without further ado, we're going to end up wrapping up here.
For the views, click for the dogs. Click for the dog for the views.
Now you do that now? We could have used that so long ago. I mean, everybody's probably left by now. But,
well,
so,
if you stayed, you gotta see a cute dog. Tell your friends so they can watch it all the way through.
In case you missed part one, check out part one because we did get interrupted near the beginning of our broadcast here. Other than that, we have Chris Costum here, a young writer, college student. We have Kimberly Jones, high school student, and an aspiring Broadway diva. And then we have Raylene, my fiance and writer as well. She does deviant art, and she has her own YouTube channel. It's actually, if you go to my front page, it has her as a recommended channel. You can subscribe there and check out her stuff. She only has 2 videos, and they're excessively lame. But, you know, I got to advertise her.
I'm trying to do gaming.
I have to help her advertise because obviously I'm better. So.
But if you have a deviant art, look me up. I'm Chibi Ray Ray.
I'm also on there, Jim Hawkins.
Not a
for
lot.
you. Jim Hawkins For You is mine, and I have a half-finished story. If I get like 60 views, I'll finish it. So go check it out.
And I do fan fiction.
Yep, she does. She does do fan fiction.
I want
Watch
to
out for Big Hero 6. Tadashi's coming back. But,
Why'd you ruin the surprise? That was part 2.
Why do you think I ruined it? Kimberly, anything you would like to advertise last minute here?
Not that I can think of.
All right, Chris, what about you?
Nothing
Good to go? All right, well, then with that, this has been the Skew episode 2 about time travel, the job market, and American rights. I hope you join us for episode 3, and we'll see who we have on next time.
I'll probably be here again.
Yeah, she better be.
I'll try to be.
We'll see. We'll see.
And this guy will probably be here again.
Yeah.
I hope so.
And Frankie will be here again. I mean, he's not here right now, but he'll be here.
And as soon as I know the topics, you can find out on the Facebook page. Just look up the Skew. It's right there. The SKEW. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great day.